Alrighty. Let's go ahead and get this going. Give it a second to, if anyone needs to join the chat or join. We have a Twitch. If you are over on Twitch, I appreciate you joining these live streams. If you're on YouTube, I appreciate you watching them. After the fact, you can always go to the other platform if you prefer to view it that way. Let me see here. Just exiting a few things. So we're about to get started here on Subtle Sound with Maureen Stewart. Let's grab that real fast. So, for those that aren't aware, we've been going through Maureen Stewart's book, Subtle Sound. I'm going to get this light right here. Perfect. Excuse me. So yeah, for those that aren't aware, we have been going through this book right here, Subtle Sounds by Maureen Stewart. Perfect. We are on chapter 13. We got the Harry Potter bookmark. Got this back from Scholastic Book Club, probably, and must have been in elementary school. So yeah, this says copyright 2000 WB. So, geez, 2000. I must have been in second grade. As you can tell, Harry Potter does look a little young in that one, but you can actually see. Well, you won't be able to see it because it's green on the background, so it blends in with the background here. But anyway, enough of that. The reason I enjoy that is because this book is Tom riddled. So for those that might be watching for the first time, I'm going to be probably stopping telling that joke after this chapter so you got in a good time. But yeah, what I mean by that, for those that aren't aware, and let me flip this real fast too. One second here. It's still, I can tell it's still backwards, so give me one more second here. I just want to get this. Yeah, okay, now that should be good. Aha! So the Taste of Zen is chapter 13. I want to try and give you a moment where each one is kind of shown on screen here. So there is the first page. Here is the second page. Now get a little closer for the second page there. Oh. And the reason I do that is just so if you need to, you can actually pause this and read the pages. That way, if anyone's actually interested in reading, you don't have to go out and buy it or anything. You can just read it as I go through it. But shout out to Maureen Stewart here. If you weren't able to see the cover because it was reversed or flipped, here's a better look at it now. So Maureen Stewart here, she's a very, very hip lady, like Martha Washington. Shout out to Martha. So first up it says the word meditation comes from the Latin meditare, which is the passive form of the verb meaning being moved to the center. The word meditation comes from the Latin word meditare, which is the passive form of the verb, meaning being moved to the center. It is not an active form, which is moving to the center. We are being moved to the center. So not moving to the center, being moved to the center. This center is our own essence. Sitting after sitting, letting everything go, we become more aware of our own personal center. We become more rooted in it. The simple act of sitting absolutely still, letting everything drop off, has far-reaching effects. Next section here goes on to say, our state of mind at any given moment becomes clearer in this condition of being present, completely present. And there is a great healing power in this. And now this next part goes on to say, of course we have pain. The true taste of Zen really cannot be understood unless we have some pain. So we do not resist that pain. We invite it in, and we find that it's not so bad. We don't move against it. We don't struggle with it. Rather, we simply breathe in and discover what it can do to change our condition. We see what happens when we pay attention to it. I'm going to read that again. This isn't highlighted. This is the little part I just read. You can see a little bit of a closer look. In case you wanted to see, I guess, how exactly it looks in its format. Of course we have pain. The true taste of Zen really cannot be understood unless we have some pain. So we do not resist that pain. We invite it in, and we find that it's not so bad. We do not move against it. We do not struggle with it. Rather, we simply breathe into it and discover what it can do to change our condition. We ask what happens when we pay attention to it. It's deep. The next section goes on to say, I often ask students, why did you come to sit? What is your reason? Do you have a reason? What happened in your life that brought you to the cushion? Why are you here? And most people will say they came here because they want to have some peace of mind. As we sit, there is some temporary peacefulness, of course, but we want to come to a condition of mind that takes us through all the circumstances of life, no matter how difficult. Then, no matter what happens, there is quiet, truly peaceful space within. And unless we endure some pain, some weariness, we cannot really taste this. Without it, our practice may never really go deep. May not ever go really deep. Please don't misunderstand. This doesn't mean we should go inflict anything on ourselves. It simply means that if pain comes, we let it come and we let it be our teacher. Thus, even illness can be a wonderful teacher for us. Even illness can be a wonderful teacher for us. And I say that as I'm like touching my chest, and right as I touch my chest, I even thought, right before I read that last line, I was like, a pain that a lot of people felt was Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther, when he passed. A lot of people, I'm wearing this from a trailer reaction for Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And for those who don't know, Black Panther was the movie that got me into like the modern day MCU. I always loved Chadwick Boseman. Yeah, that's tough. Chadwick, miss you, buddy. But the reason I say that is because that maybe there's some greater design or greater purpose that I myself don't understand or don't see at this point as to why Chadwick passing is a good thing. It's hard to find beauty in something like that. really makes you question a lot of things. And even though I didn't know Chadwick on a personal level, as someone who appreciates art, and I see Chadwick Boseman as more than an actor. He was like a thespian. He was like an artist of the stage. He was an artist. He's like, he wasn't like really concerned with the glitz and glam of Hollywood as much as he was concerned with just telling moving stories through cinema. Yeah, I don't want to get emotional, but that's tough. It's really, really tough. It's a little bright. Just trying to turn down the brightness just a little bit. It's a little easier to see on the eyes. Let me actually do this too. I'll drop that text. 1 second here. Cool. All right. I really just like to make sure that, because I know some people out there, sorry. I know some people out there would want to see this. So the next highlighted section says, we cut down the forest of our delusions and cultivate the fields of our true nature. Sitting quietly, we are cutting off, digging, cultivating the Buddha fields. This Buddha Dharma is deeply rooted in our ordinary everyday activities. Lofty discussions miss the mark. In this practice, we engage in our life work completely and fully, reaching our essential being and then expressing it wherever we are. We can never come to a standstill on this path. We are always moving on. And then it goes to say, letting ourselves be moved on by the Buddha Dharma. Sorry. AC poo. Ace, don't be making any noise. A little sneak peek for tomorrow. So this last paragraph goes on to say, these simple, quiet activities, just sitting, yes, chair's a little squeaky there. These simple, quiet activities, just sitting, just walking, just eating, just cleaning, are helping us find a vital way of living, a way to face things fearlessly, directly from our essential being. Today we are looking at everything as it is. Well, let me read this highlighted part. A way to face things fearlessly, directly from our essential being. These simple, quiet activities, just sitting, just walking, just eating, just cleaning, are helping us find a vital way of living. A way to face things fearlessly, directly from our essential being. Goes on to say, today we are looking at everything as if it is for the first time. We take no fixed positions. We let our opinions fall away. There is no inner voice insisting This is the way I have to do it. We are willing to find a new way to do it, a new way to look at it, a new way to open up. This is beginner's mind. We are giving ourselves entirely to each moment, just as we are, rooted on our cushions, rooted in the earth. Sitting on our cushions by our own effort, we feel the wonderful support and encouragement of all others present. What an extraordinary practice we have together. Self and other, not separate. In breath, out breath, receiving, giving, just this. Excuse me. So, it's tough. I'm going to have to relate it to Chadwick Boseman because obviously that struck a chord with me personally. So I gotta get that out. I gotta try and make sense of it, and hopefully you guys will indulge me while I try to. So I wanted to kind of elaborate on this part right here. It says, of course we have pain. The true taste of Zen can really not be understood unless we have some pain. So we do not resist that pain. We invite it in, and we find that it's not so bad. We do not move against it. We do not struggle with it. Rather, we simply breathe into it and discover what it is what we can do to change our condition. We see what happens when we pay attention to it. I often ask students, why did you come to sit? What is your reason? Do you have a reason? What happened in your life that brought you to the cushion? Why are you here? And most people say they came because they wanted to have some peace of mind. As we sit, there is some temporary peacefulness, of course, but we come to a condition of mind that takes us through all the circumstances of our life. No matter how difficult, then no matter what happens, there is this quiet, truly spaceful peace within. Unless we endure some pain, some weariness, we cannot really taste this. Without it, our practice may never really go deep. May not ever go really deep. Please do not misunderstand. This doesn't mean we should inflict anything on ourselves. It simply means that if pain comes, we let it come and we let it be our teacher. Thus, even illness can be a wonderful teacher for us. Pain and joy, samsara and nirvana are not separate. Delusion and enlightenment are not separate. Even the words separate or together are not separate. There was a Zen master named Jaizo who decided to live alone on a little farm. There he continued his practice, sitting as much as he wanted to, working as much as he wanted to. He lived in a tiny hut and worked. One day, 4 traveling monks stopped for a visit. They didn't know who lived there or who was living there, but they thought they would investigate. Jaizo asked them in, and he gave them whatever hospitality he could offer. He apologized that his hut was too small to hold all of them, but he built a nice fire outdoors so they could all sit around it and be comfortable, eat, and relax. When they were finished with their meal and had rested a while, he inquired, "It appears that you are Zen monks. In your practice, do you consider yourself and this field, this stone, this hut, separate or not separate?" These monks didn't realize they were talking to a master. They thought this was some old farmer sitting in his hut. One of them, named Shuzan, answered impatiently, "They are separate. Everybody knows that." Jaizo held up 2 fingers and quietly said, "I have read a little bit about Buddhism, and according to my understanding, the Buddhist teaching is that self and others are not separate. Shuzan hurriedly said, "Of course. Oh yes, of course. There is no separation. Of course, everybody knows that between oneself and one's surrounding there is no separation. Quite right, quite right." And again, Jaizo held up 2 fingers. And so on one part of your mind is saying that there is differentiation. The other part is saying there is oneness. What about this? Shuzan laughed nervously and said to his friends, "Let's get out of here." He did not think this ordinary old farmer had anything to teach him. How often we miss a great opportunity. So many things teaching us all the time. The words printed on the label of a tea bag can teach us, but too often we think, I want a famous, wonderful, illustrious teacher from the great lineage to teach me. I must find such a person. The monks set off for southern China, where Buddhism was quite popular. On the journey, Shuzan found that he couldn't stop thinking about the question the farmer had asked, and he felt a little guilty that he had dismissed the old person. Are things really separate, or are they one? What is this split in my mind? What kind of Zen student am I? As he pondered these questions, he began to practice very sincerely. There was a lot going on around him, but he continued to practice in his own way, just as each of us do. We are always surrounded by many activities, many books. There will always be interesting lectures to go to, but fundamentally, at bottom, we must find out for ourselves. And then one day he returned to the old farmer, who was no longer in his overalls, but instead wearing his robes. This time, Zhaizu asked Shuzan, "Where have you come from?" In so many Zen stories, this question is asked. What is the real question being posed? Where have you come from? What was your face before your What was your face before your parents were born? Who are you? Where are you going? Why are you here? It's a great question. What was your face before your parents were born? As most of us would do, Shuzan gave him a literal answer. I have come from the south, Jizo said. How is the Buddha Dharma in the south? Shuzan told him all about the many discussions, the popularity of Mandu, which is in question-answer dialogues, the flourishing intellectual life there. Zhaizu was unimpressed. Is that so? It doesn't seem good as what we are doing here. What are you doing here? Shuzan inquired. We cut down trees and cultivate the fields. What do we do in our zazen? We cut down the forest of our delusions and cultivate the fields of our true nature. Sitting quietly, we are cutting off, digging, cultivating the Buddha fields. Wow. Yeah. This book is good. And yeah, I got this book at a book drop, you know? So it's like this book didn't cost me anything. I've donated books to that book drop before, usually like kids' books or old books I'd read when I was younger that I just hadn't touched, or like, R.L. Stein or Boxcar Kids, stuff like that. But just the fact that I picked this book up, and just the fact that I'm reading it to you, just the fact that you're listening to it, and even if you're only taking a small bit of what I'm saying, the ripple effects, like the butterfly effect, the ripple effects that this small impact can have on you, like it is on me, is profound, and it's really unquantifiable. It's deep. So yeah, what I wanted to mention was this part. Why did you come to sit? What is your reason? Do you have a reason? What happened in your life that brought you to this cushion? Why are you here? And those are all questions. I'll show you. Excuse me. Right there. That little section. So, to me, and this is just to me, I would love to hear your guys' interpretations, thoughts, views, what goes through your head when you hear some of this stuff. But to me, I want to tell you, I guess, my origin story as to why I'm on that. I have a meditation pillow I got probably about a year ago. Before that, I think I just used like a bed pillow, or I'd use like a couch pillow. And what brought me to the cushion, and if you don't meditate yet, I'd recommend it. But ultimately, I can't recommend you doing something that you don't do and have any benefit. Ultimately, you have to have some desire deep down within to do it. And that's even what this book says and what we just read. You can't really I can't tell you really what you'll benefit from meditating. But the reason I did it is because I had heard about meditation for so long, and it's something that it always kind of felt weird to me. Maybe like it felt very I'll be honest, it felt like a weird practice that didn't really seem to serve any purpose. It didn't really seem to matter, right? But then, does anything matter? It's kind of like religion. If you go to church or if you go to temple, why? You can't really see the benefits of it. You might maybe feel better about yourself, but that is the same thing with meditation. You do it to hopefully feel better about yourself. And it's not necessarily like feeling better about yourself is the direct first thing. It's like, oh, I meditate because I want to feel better. No, I meditate because I want to be more spiritually sound. I want to not be so emotional in times where I know I can be emotional. I want to not harbor any resentment or anger towards people who might have done me wrong, or maybe I don't want to be living my life based on shallow, vapid, sort of materialistic or trivial things. Once I pass through all those stages, it's like, oh yeah, if I can eliminate those things, I will be a better person. Or if I can adjust those things in some small, even a small degree, then I will be a much better person when I end up there. So I started meditating because I wanted to be a better person, yes. But that's not to say there aren't obstacles or like little check marks along the way that ultimately end there. So it's not quite an A to B. It's more like an A to Z. And I'm B, C, D, E. And I've gone through probably like somewhere around maybe like Q or R. So I'm not quite at Z yet. But it reminds me of like Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is another book. I haven't read the full book, but I know that one of the things they mention is try to be, excuse me, it's about 3 a.m. here. They try and say that, or James Clear makes the point that doing something 1% better every day through the course of an entire year will make you 38 times better when you get to the end of that year. So just say meditating, right? Meditate 1% better each day, like feel like you took it at least 1% more seriously, or go to the gym and work out 1% harder. And by the time you get to the end of the year, you'll be 38 times over a 38, not 38%, 38, like that'd be 3,800%. Because you have to think about the compounding factor there. And to me, that's huge. It's kind of like with tennis. The difference between a world-class tennis player and someone who doesn't even make the qualifiers is like a couple percent points, like a 52% point average versus like a 56. So yeah, it's like, these small margins of improvement can be the difference between you being a world-class something and you being like an amateur, or you being like someone who's all right, but you're not going to be uh, Nadal or anything. You're not going to be Venus and Serena Williams. And that's a big thing to think about as far as just those small little differences and how much those can really add up. And to me, goodness, yeah, I'm heading to bed after this. To me, I can't really stress it enough. Even if, say, you don't want to go meditate because it's not your thing, or you don't really feel like it's your thing, that's fine. But just show passion in your work. Just go to work optimistically. Go to work, or, when you spend time with your friends and family, say you don't even have a job. When you spend time with your friends and family, listen. Actively be there. Don't necessarily be on your phone at all times. I know they're distracting. They are by design. Don't be paying attention to the TV, to a TV show that's really not going to have any difference in your life in a few years. Just spend the time with your people. Ask them questions. Listen to the answers. You'd be amazed, because I'm amazed, at how many people just don't listen in today's day and age. And that's a shame. It's like people just don't pay attention to each other. It's bad. If there's anything that I can ever help you with, or if there's anything that I can listen to you with or about, I want you to tell me, because I would love to listen. And I really would love to listen. People always tell me, Ethan, this is going to kind of sound like, I don't want this to come off as like big-headed or egocentric, because it's not. But people tell me very often, or it's like in the last couple of years, people have told me this, and it actually correlates a lot with when I started meditating, when I started reading books, and not just this book, like Dune, a bunch of biographies, Obama's book, Matthew McConaughey's book written about Donald Trump, Rage, Tucker Carlson, 1984, Malcolm X. It's like all these books. Like it's like 15 or 20 books in the last couple of years. But people told me a little bit before, but really after COVID has kind of come around, that people tell me, they're like, Ethan, you're so smart. Ethan, like, you're a genius. Ethan, you're this. Ethan, you're that. And it's usually something along the lines of, like, you seem like a really, really smart person. Like, how did you get like that? And I always tell people, well, if I tell them thank you, because I think that's a really nice thing for someone to say about you. But I tell them, I don't like to downplay it necessarily right away. I usually like to be like, thank you. But then if they are like really genuinely curious and they're not just like paying me a compliment, they're like, how'd you get so smart? I just tell them, like, I just listened. I just listen. I'm actively curious. If someone's saying something, I'll ask why. If I find something interesting, I'll, even quantum theory. It's like, string theory, quantum physics, like that sort of stuff interests me. And if I was like 13 or 17 and you had been like, hey, Ethan, when you're 30 years old, like, you're going to watch like videos about quantum mechanics and string theory when you're 30 years old, is just like a kind of like a hobby, just like it's something like you want to learn. I'd be like, really? Huh. I would have thought you're crazy, for one. But then, like, to be in that spot now, I'm like, wow, how did I get here? And then I just remember, I'm like, oh, well, I just was naturally curious. If someone doesn't like something, and then they just say, like, it's like my sister. I was like, Abigail, you should read Tucker Carlson's book. I know that you might have this idea of what he's like from the news, but he's just kind of like a talking head that reads a teleprompter that's to pass through 30 filters. His book is actually much more a reflection of him. It's like the same Tucker you see in interviews outside of the Fox News umbrella. And it's like the same thing with Obama. If someone's like, I don't like Obama. It's like, well, do you really know Obama? Like, you might not like his policies, but you have to remember this guy was an elected leader who represented a lot of different interests. And sure, you might not have liked everything Obama did, and you might not like everything Tucker says on the news, but like, do you know them on a personal level? Oh, you don't? Well, you should read their books, because their books are direct reflections of who they are. Just like that's what I like about YouTube. It's like this video is a reflection of who I am. I'm not being paid by Maureen Stewart. I have no interest in being dishonest with you. I just telling you my own personal experience, and I hope that in some way it might benefit you and help your experience, so you can kind of not run into the wall on some places where I might have, and vice versa too. And so, yeah, when people ask me, they're like, Ethan, how'd you get so smart? I just tell them, I was like, I'm curious. And if someone says something I don't like, I'm never like, yeah. It's like with my sister, the point I was making with Abigail and Tucker Carlson. She's like, yeah, I don't want to read his book. I'm like, Abigail, you should read his book if you don't like him, because then people like me who like him, quote unquote, or anyone, you can say, I've read Tucker Carlson's book, I know his stuff, and I don't jive with it, or whatever. But if you don't know him on the level where it's like you can critique his work based on like an actual area of coming from a place of curiosity, and like an actual area of criticism that it has the backing of knowledge behind it, then you lose all credibility, in my opinion. And yeah, you can make up whatever views or opinions you have of people, but ultimately that's shallow. It's not, you're selling yourself short. And people like me who are smart will see right through that. And I don't look down on people for that. I feel sorry and I feel sad, because I'm like, there's so much in life that even though you might not agree with it on the surface level, once you do come around to liking it, or once you do come from a place of knowledge, it feels much more whole to either not like it or like it. And the example with this, Kanye West. I personally, I'm Jewish, or my father's Jewish. I am involved with the synagogue, and but my mother's not Jewish. So technically, I'm not Jewish, in some ways. Some people would say, yeah, you're half Jewish. Some people would say, oh, well, you're Jewish because your father. Some people would say, well, you're not Jewish because your mother isn't. Whatever the case is, I don't really get, the title. I'm not going to get bogged down with the titles, but the reason I mentioned that is because Kanye recently had a plight with Jewish people. And so all that aside, which I don't hate the guy. I'm here mentioning him as a conclusion of this video. But the reason I mention him is because, coming from someone who did not like Kanye West, starting all the way back to like 2004, when he was releasing Graduation at the same time that Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, was releasing Curtis. And to me, I was a huge 50 Cent fan. I loved Get Rich or Die Trying, that album. I was a suburban white Jewish kid in a middle class to upper middle class suburbia. And so I didn't really culturally identify with 50 Cent, but I liked, there's always that saying, white America loves black America. It's like white America is kind of infatuated with like black America, and Malcolm X has theories on why that is. But the point is that I liked 50 Cent a lot more, and I did not like Kanye West. And it took 15, 16 years, give or take, for me to come around, right? So from '04 to 2020, I did not like Kanye West. And I slowly started warming up to the guy. And ultimately, now I'm a huge Kanye West fan. And I still like 50 Cent. I hope everything's going well for him. But it's like, just to kind of come full circle, and now it's like I know so much more about Kanye West than like the layman. It's like I listen to more Kanye West music than 99.8% of people. So I'm in the top, or sorry, I think it was 99.98%. I'm either in the top 0.2% or the top 0.02%, but I'm somewhere in that range where it's like I listen to a lot of Kanye West. I like the Yeezy brand. I like the Yeezy, like, it's like I'm wearing a pair of Yeezy slides right now. Personally, Kanye West got me into streetwear and got me into fashion. He got me in, I went to church recently. You can see me reading a Bible. He got me into, like, the religious, even though I'm Jewish, it's like, hey, Jesus was Jewish. But it's like he got me into these sectors of my life where it's like he kind of like brought me into parts of my life I wouldn't have otherwise been at. And if I would have stayed that closed-minded kid who didn't like him because he wore pink polos and a backpack, like he said so eloquently, then I would still be that little kid, And there's nothing wrong with retaining the spirit of youth, but there is something wrong with being ignorant. And I was ignorant, but now, as we grow, we all are at some point or another, but we grow up. And so point is if you're going to be like me, try and grow as you do. Try and think critically, and don't ever be complacent. A wise man knows he knows nothing. I'll leave it with that quote. A wise man knows he knows nothing. So if there's someone out there like Kanye West that you might not like for your own personal reasons, try and see the beauty in it. Try and see what they're talking about. Try and see things from their perspective and listen. I think that's what Jesus would do. I think that's what Maureen Stewart would do. And that's what your boy EFly hopes you do. So with that being said, thank you very much for being here with me on this late evening and hearing me preach the gospel. But with all that being said, I truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate you spending your time with me. Please, as always, let me know in the comment section your thoughts on this video, and I hope to see you again for chapter 14. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care, stay safe, God bless, much love, EFly out.